right, everyone, get ready for this. We are taking a deep dive today into the Baha'i faith.
Okay.
And specifically their view of the soul.
Right.
And afterlife, which honestly, it's an incredibly positive and, I don't know, hopeful perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's one thing to believe in an eternal soul, right?
Yeah.
But the Baha'i teachings, they kind of go beyond that. They have this whole structure about how the soul actually keeps evolving after we die.
Right.
Always moving closer to something way bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, and what I think is so fascinating is that they don't just say okay, the soul just goes somewhere when you die.
Yeah.
It's an active process. It's growth. You can kind of picture it like a seed that becomes a tree,
Okay.
It's not just about going to a different place. It's about reaching your full potential.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And that's how they see this journey of the soul.
Oh, okay.
Always unfolding, and I think in ways that we can't even begin to imagine right now.
So you're saying that what we experience here, in this life,
Yeah.
it's just the tip of the iceberg of what our souls are capable of?
Exactly. Think about it. Right now, everything we understand about the universe, it's limited by our physical senses, on our human brain.
Right.
But what happens when those limits are lifted?
Whoa!
What if after death, the soul can see and understand things that are way beyond anything we can even grasp right now?
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. I'm really curious now. So how does this connect with their idea of the afterlife?
Right.
Do they believe in a heaven and hell?
So this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They don't really picture heaven and hell as these physical places, with pearly gates and fire and all that.
Right.
They describe it more as a state of being.
Okay.
Like a realm where you become super aware of the consequences of all your actions in this life.
So it's not about external rewards and punishments,
Right.
but more about what's going on inside.
Exactly. The writings actually talk about how in the afterlife, you basically experience the full weight of your choices,
Okay.
both the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so much about God judging you,
Right.
but more about you kind of coming face to face with the impact of everything you did
I see.
on yourself and on others.
That kind of reminds me of that saying, you reap what you sow.
Mhm.
It's not about some outside force,
Right.
but it's the natural outcome of all of our choices.
Exactly. Yeah. And for them, this reckoning isn't meant to be a punishment or anything like that.
Okay.
It's an opportunity, really, for the soul to learn and to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that analogy of the seed and the tree?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes growth means shedding old leaves, pruning branches,
Right.
and even feeling a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's all part of this process of becoming something stronger, something more beautiful.
That's actually a very hopeful way to look at it. But I think some people hearing this might think wait, so if I mess up in this life, am I stuck with that forever?
Yeah, and that's a really common misunderstanding.
Okay.
Because the Baha'i teachings, they actually emphasize the infinite progress of the soul.
Okay.
Abdu'l-Bahá, who's a really central figure in the faith, described it as a world without end.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine, endless opportunities for growth and learning and for getting closer and closer to the divine.
It really changes how we think about death, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not an end. It's this transition to something massive and honestly hard to even picture.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier this idea that this world we're in now is a reflection of a greater spiritual reality. Can you talk about that a little more?
Of course, yeah. The Baha'i teachings, they describe this physical world as a kind of a mirror image of the true spiritual realm.
Interesting.
Think about this. Have you ever noticed how a simple act of kindness can actually bring this feeling of joy that goes way deeper than the action itself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's something more going on.
Right.
Something much more meaningful than just what happened on the surface.
Exactly. And they believe that those moments of real joy, peace, love are glimpses of that spiritual reality breaking through.
Okay.
And they suggest that the virtues that we try to live by in this world, things like justice, compassion, generosity, those are actually reflections of divine qualities.
Oh, wow.
So we're essentially developing those qualities here so we can experience them more fully in the next world.
I see.
It's we're in training, for something way bigger.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's incredible to think about,
It is.
That the way we live our lives here is actually like preparing our souls for that next chapter.
Yeah, totally, totally.
But it also kind of makes you wonder, right? If we're in training, what actions actually matter the most?
Right, exactly.
Like, how do we make sure we're developing the right, spiritual muscles, so to speak, while we're here?
I was literally just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in, like, everyday life.
Yeah.
And lose sight of that bigger picture.
Right.
What would you say the Baha'i faith recommends?
Well,
for those of us who want to, make sure our souls are on the right track.
One of the core principles they really emphasize is this idea of work as worship.
Okay.
And it's not just about, like, traditional prayer or meditation.
Right.
They believe that any work you do, any work at all, as long as it's done with a spirit of service to others, with excellence and dedication, that becomes a form of worship.
So like a doctor who's healing patients, a teacher inspiring students, even a parent, taking care of their family.
Right, exactly.
All of that can be seen as acts of devotion.
Exactly.
Wow.
It kind of changes our whole perspective, right?
It did.
On what we normally consider spiritual.
Right.
Suddenly, everything we do and every action has this deep spiritual meaning to it.
That's really cool.
And this idea, it goes hand in hand with another important Baha'i teaching.
Okay.
Which is detachment.
Now, when I hear detachment, I think of like monks living in caves, renouncing all their possessions.
Yeah.
Is that what they're talking about?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Detachment in the Baha'i sense is more about understanding that material things don't last.
Okay.
It's about shifting your focus away from getting more stuff and instead cultivating your spiritual qualities.
Okay.
It's not about living in poverty.
Right.
It's more about not letting your possessions define who you are.
Okay, yeah.
Or control what you do.
So it's more about like our priorities, focusing on inner growth.
Right.
And helping others rather than just chasing after, material things.
Exactly. It's about realizing that true happiness, real fulfillment comes from aligning your actions with that higher purpose.
Right.
That journey of the soul that we've been talking about.
Right.
And speaking of purpose, the Baha'i faith puts a lot of emphasis on the oneness of humanity.
Yeah. That's a concept that resonates with a lot of, different spiritual traditions.
Right. It is.
What's unique about the Baha'i perspective on that?
Well, they take it a step further by connecting it to the idea of a unified world civilization.
Okay.
They actually envision a future where everyone recognizes that we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
And we work together to solve all these global problems that we're facing.
Right.
Going beyond national borders, religious differences, all of that.
So it's not just about acknowledging that we're all connected, like, in theory.
Exactly.
It's about actively working to create a better world.
Exactly.
For everyone.
For everyone.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's where individual actions become so crucial. The Baha'i writings really highlight this idea that each one of us, we all have a part to play in building this future.
Right.
Every act of kindness, every effort to promote understanding and cooperation, even the steps we take towards living more sustainably, all of those things contribute to, the progress of humanity as a whole.
It's a really powerful reminder that we're not just, separate individuals. It's like we're all threads in this huge tapestry.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we're all interconnected, doesn't that also mean that our, negative actions have an impact too?
Yeah.
What about the times when we mess up, make mistakes?
Of course.
Or even hurt others?
That's a really human concern,
Yeah.
And the Baha'i faith doesn't try to avoid that at all.
Okay.
While they do emphasize taking responsibility for our actions, they also really believe in the transformative power of forgiveness and repentance.
So it's not about dwelling on the guilt or shame.
Right.
But it's about recognizing the mistake, learning from it, and trying to make things right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Repentance for them means turning away from those harmful behaviors.
Okay.
And actively trying to make things right. It's about taking real, concrete steps to change your path.
Okay.
And align your actions with that higher purpose again.
That sounds a lot like the concept of redemption.
Yeah.
That you see in other spiritual traditions.
Absolutely.
Would you say that the Baha'i faith believes in second chances?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Okay.
They believe that God's mercy is limitless. That no matter how far we've strayed, we can always find our way back to that path of spiritual growth.
Okay.
And this path, it's not just about individual salvation either.
Right.
It's about contributing to the collective evolution of all humanity.
It's like we're all on this journey together.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning and growing side by side.
Right.
But this whole idea of the soul's journey being eternal, it's almost like too much to really wrap our minds around.
It is.
Do the Baha'i teachings give us any insight into what that journey actually, looks like? Like what happens to the soul after it leaves this physical world?
Well,
yeah, it's really hard to even imagine,
it is.
What awaits us in that realm beyond the physical world. Do the Baha'i teachings actually shed any light on like the specifics of that journey? Or is it more about just, I don't know, pondering the unknown?
Well, the writings, they're pretty clear that we just don't have the capacity to fully understand right now.
Okay.
They often use this analogy of a child in the womb.
Okay.
Just like a baby can't really grasp what life outside the womb is like.
Yeah.
We can't fully grasp the spiritual world while we're still connected to, this physical plane of existence.
So it's like trying to explain the internet
to
someone who's never even seen a computer.
Exactly, yeah.
Like they might get the basic concept,
right,
but the whole scope of it would just be completely beyond their understanding.
Way beyond, yeah.
Okay, I get that.
But even though we don't have all the answers right now,
yeah,
the Baha'i teachings, they do offer us some glimpses, into what that journey might look like. They really emphasize that it's a process of continuous progress.
Okay.
This journey of constantly getting closer to God.
Okay, that makes sense. But what does closer to God actually mean in this context? Is it like a physical closeness, or is it more, I don't know, metaphorical?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
And I think it really gets at how the Baha'i faith understands the nature of God.
Okay.
They don't see God as like this being who's confined to a specific place or anything.
Right.
But more as an all-encompassing reality.
Okay.
This source of like infinite love and wisdom and perfection.
So drawing closer to God is more about aligning ourselves with those qualities.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Becoming more loving, wiser, striving for that perfection.
Right.
It's about reflecting those divine attributes.
Right. Okay.
In our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
I see.
And they suggest that this process of like spiritual refinement, it keeps going in the afterlife.
Okay.
But without all the limitations, of our physical bodies and all these earthly distractions.
So it's like we're constantly evolving, shedding these layers of our ego and our limitations as we get closer and closer to that, Pure source of goodness.
Exactly.
But this idea of infinite progress.
Yeah.
Does that mean there's like no final destination?
Right.
No ultimate endpoint?
Well, the writings suggest that it's eternal.
Okay.
It's a never-ending process of growth and discovery.
Wow.
They believe that even in the afterlife, there are countless realms of existence.
Okay.
Each one offering, new opportunities for learning and for spiritual advancement.
That's a really incredible concept.
It is.
It makes you realize that death isn't the end at all.
Right.
It's just like a transition to a new phase of this incredible journey.
Exactly.
And if we really take that to heart, how do you think it should change the way we live our lives now?
Well, for me, I think it emphasizes just how important it is to live with purpose.
Okay.
And intentionality. Knowing that our actions have eternal consequences. That really motivates me.
Yeah.
To make choices that align with my values. And that contribute to making the world a better place.
Right.
And it also brings a sense of peace,
Okay.
Knowing that even though this earthly life will end our souls, they don't.
It's a really powerful reminder.
Yeah.
That we're all part of something way bigger than ourselves, something that extends far beyond just, the limits of our own individual lives.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really beautiful and hopeful message to end on.
It is.
We've covered a lot today in this deep dive.
We have.
Exploring some really deep and thought-provoking ideas.
Yeah, we really have.
But this is really just the beginning of the exploration.
Right.
We encourage all of you to keep thinking about these things.
Yeah.
Seek out more knowledge,
Absolutely.
and see how this understanding of the soul's journey
can
enrich your own lives.
Right.
Thanks for joining us.
It was a pleasure.